time to put down your rod and pick up your headphones. Join JC and Andy from Ebb Tide Tackle for The Outflow, the podcast talking all things lure fishing with hardcore fishers from all over the world.
Let me set the scene today. We are sitting in a dodgy motel room in Auckland near the airport with three shady characters. Nate Tsao from 808 Hawaii, Jake Pyne from New Zealand, and I guess a fair bit of Hawaii in you as well. And Outflow regular Cish, Christian Georgiopoulos. Hello, mate.
Hello.
We good? Yep, that's him. Come, boys, say hi.
G'day.
That was so natural.
How's it? Pookie and hot rice.
Pookie and hot rice. Yeah, well, I could go a bowl of that right now. So we've been on a bit of a 5-day land-based topwater kingfish mission in the North Island of New Zealand. And the trip's over with 2 days of awesome fishing. Was it 18 fish, boys?
Between the four of us.
18 between four and your two buddies.
Slice and Tolly got... Shoot, they might have got another, at least
7.
I think possibly 8 between the two of them, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so they killed it in like a day and a bit.
A day and a morning.
Yeah, so we did pretty good, yeah?
Yeah, it was good. That was, to be fair, I think we've had times where we've caught more fish, but this particular trip was a lot of big fish, and we had a lot of good shots and lost a few heartbreaks. But I think the average fish was bigger than normal.
Yeah, there was some serious quality there. And of course, in any fishing trip, you know, over the course of days, there's quiet times, but we had moments of absolute mayhem and madness. And
Yeah,
I think we'd all agree that there was, a six-way hookup? Was it six-way?
It definitely could have been 6-way. There was 6 of us there. Tim he brought in an 18 kilo fish, and then quickly took it off the hook and chucked it back in so he could recast again. So it was
He kicked that fish off the lure as fast as he could when I leadered it to get his lure back in the water as quick as possible. He was like, I'm not here for an 18. I'm here for a 30. He was like, get this stuff off my line.
I distinctly remember you running around like, what? Who? Where? What do I do?
It was mad, man. I could not get to everybody's fish in time. Because
Yeah.
everybody had fish up in the weeds that needed to be leadered, and I was winded. I almost puked after running around chasing you guys' fish.
The last thing that was actually going to happen for you right then, Nate, was actually you get a cast, wasn't it?
No, it was not going to happen. I was done. I was winded.
It's pretty cool stuff. So there's some quality fish there. Like, what was the biggest, Jake? We had some serious quality.
Yeah, we did. I think on the 6-way, 5-way, whatever we want to call it, like I think the smallest fish was probably about 115 centimeters. I think that would have been the smallest. I mean, maybe even slightly bigger. Like they were all big fish, and the biggest one went 127. I think
127.
Totally typical tall boy style. Kind of called it for 126, but I think it was actually 127.
It was 127. Yeah.
And that's a big fish. We weighed that one. It was kind of longer. It could have been a lot heavier, but it was the longest, and that was 24 and a bit kilos.
Yeah, 24 and a bit. That's a solid kingfish.
Big fish.
Anywhere.
Off the bricks, lifetime fish.
Yeah, awesome. Is that a PB for him? Like off the
Yes,
bricks?
absolutely. No, it wouldn't be, but it would be for topwater.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, from
He's
his
caught,
old,
old land-based
yeah.
days. He's caught bigger, but
ballooning out liveys.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. I wish we knew
that's-
that at the time.
Yeah, so that kind of like I guess sets the scene. Like it was definitely good fishing.
Yeah.
You guys scored it.
Awesome. And we have, like, we're all topwater guys, right? We love topwater. We love degrees of land-based, like Cish. You've never actually done it before, and you've never done kingfish before. We'll come to that for you a little bit later, man. But that was some pretty epic fishing. Yeah. And what's led us all here together, I reckon, is worth exploring a little bit of how these four people, like you two guys, know each other, Jake and Nate. I know Nate from basically meeting up in Oman, fishing over at No Boundaries.
Yeah.
Cish and I, like, there's a lot of worlds colliding here. But let's peel it back a little bit and get to know each other a little bit, and for the listeners to work out who we're talking to a little bit.
Sure.
Let's start with you, Jake, because I know Nate's a bit of a reluctant hero, and we'll get to him a little bit later. But Jake,
Yes.
I guess your identity is attached a little bit for people that know you to the brand LoCAB.
Yeah.
So take us through it, mate. Tell us about what LoCAB is. Tell us what you are, and
Right.
I know you love Topwater and you really love your kingies.
Mm-hmm.
Lead us into it, mate. Tell us what you're all about.
Right. Well, I guess I've been kind of doing this whole my job and the way I've made a living over the years is through kind of streetwear clothing. So I've been really involved in the kind of streetwear culture, and I guess sneakers has kind of been a big part of what I've done. And this, it kind of sounds lame these days, but the hype kind of culture, like some people are just into collecting shit. And so I've been doing that for a long time, and kind of started to, I guess, as I grew a bit older, I lost interest in that. But I really definitely, started to get into fishing, and I feel like it was a far more pure thing to do on my weekends instead of like, going to sneaker stores. I was kind of wanting to get out in nature and do something, a bit more, a bit more of a release instead of just spending money and kind of getting, therapy that way. So I got into fishing, and then fell in love with kingies. I get seasick, so I used to really enjoy doing the land-based thing. I, oftentimes didn't have access to boats and things like that, so I spent a lot of time on wharfs and piers and hanging out with buddies, and we would kind of go early and catch bait and live bait them, and that was great. Really enjoyed that. Loved that kind of land-based challenge. And then I got introduced to Topwater, and I really started to kind of see this culture that was similar to the whole sneaker and record collecting culture, that the streetwear culture that I'd seen previously, and that was just with collecting lures and rods and kind of like nice equipment, and I was like, man, this is rad. I can kind of dig this, and then as I kind of started doing it, and then it wasn't just about collecting them, it's actually about using them, and then like this whole thing of like, there's this kind of like, you're in this state of kind of almost anxiety, like casting out this really nice expensive lure.
I relate.
And you could lose it at any moment, and that kind of heightens the whole feeling, and it's and then to actually get an amazing fish on a great lure in a sketchy spot. Like I like to actually like frame that lure and the photo of that fish and kind of have that memory forever, and it's like extra special. Whereas if you got it on a $10 lure, it wouldn't be as cool.
Yeah, I totally get that. So the streetwear brand you're referring to that has been obviously a big part of your life for a long time is Lower. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
huge brand in New Zealand.
Yes,
massive brand. Yeah. Tell us about LoCAB.
So LoCAB, LoCAB's. So I started Lower, and that was my passion at the time, like I was saying before, and it's streetwear is still something I'm into. It's kind of my lane. It's something I understand. I feel like I know it really well, and we've done it well. But fishing's kind of like my new passion. So
you found a new jam, haven't you?
I have, and I like, if I'm gonna work, I want to do something that I really enjoy. So I was actually on sabbatical going through Europe with my wife and kids, and trying to think about like really what I love, what makes me happy, and it was fishing, and specifically topwater fishing. And I thought, I want to build a brand around this. And then I thought, I don't want to just build a brand and do the same as every other fishing brand.
Right,
it's kind of hot right now. So I thought I want to do something different. So it was natural for me to kind of try and do something around that whole streetwear lane, and streetwear and topwater fishing. So that's kind of what it is. That's what LoCAB is.
Have I got it right? The name LoCAB. Cab is cast again, bro.
Yeah, so I started as cab, and I had to change it because cast again. I wanted something Kiwi.
Yeah.
I wanted, like I'm from New Zealand, like I wanted something Kiwi.
Because there's a big bro culture here.
There is.
Yeah.
Like, bro, if I say bro every second word.
Yeah.
And so like there's that, but it was just it was Kiwi. So I was like, this is like, cast again, bro. Like that was just.
And the low is that a play off on Lower?
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, it is kind
Yeah.
of in a way. So what happened is I couldn't get the trademark for cab in Japan, and the trademark lawyer was saying, "Look, you're gonna have trouble." So he said, "You'd be better to change tack now and actually put something else, change it basically." So, but I really wanted to keep cab because I'd already made a few T-shirts and was kind of already starting to go with that. So I was like, right, I'm going to change the name. There was a brand called, like, kind of a streetwear fashion brand in Australia called Subi. Well, that's called Subi, and they were previously called Kisubi. And when they actually changed their name, so they changed from a K to a T, so like silent K.
Oh, yeah,
T.
yeah.
When they changed their name, it actually was almost a good thing. So it was a talking point. People talked about, oh, did you hear they changed their name? They couldn't get trademark and stuff. So they've been trading for years, and then they changed it. So I always remembered that and thought, I'm going to kind of try and apply the same thing. Hadn't even really made any shit yet, but I'd already had an Instagram, and people were starting to follow and whatnot. So it was just that was the strategy. And so I kind of did this thing, and people, quickly knew it as LoCAB. And yeah. So I added the low. Like, people say, what does the low stand for? And I'm like, lures only. Like, that's the only thing I can come up with, but that's just some bullshit made up. Like, it really doesn't mean anything. It just sounds cool. I thought, like, I was thinking like Tupac, like two-cab, all this shit. But the LoCAB just kind of sounded right. So
Yeah, it does. It sounds right and cool, and matches what it seems to me you're trying to do.
Right.
Is do your slant, your unique slant on fishing apparel. Like, you sell some tackle too.
Yeah, minor tackle, but like ultimately one day, I guess I got dreams to be able to do some cool tackle stuff. But
yeah,
it is predominantly around the rag trade, because that's what I know. I'd love to make dope fishing clothes for fools that want to just be like, I'm a fisherman, like that's their identity.
Right.
And they might listen to some hip hop shit, or like,
So
Yeah.
Your clothes are worth discussing for a moment, because there is definitely a street style to them.
Sure.
And fishing isn't traditionally thought of as cool, is it? It's like,
It is becoming cool, though. I think
Yeah.
there's a change in things are changing.
Well, it's probably worth chatting about that for a moment, because there's the whole clothing culture in Australia. Like, every week a brand pops up. It literally, I think it's weekly. And there's a strong emphasis on that marine outlook. There's a lot of anchors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fish hooks faced backwards to each other or forwards to each other. It's like, it's super common. How do you become different? How do you stand out from the crowd and
Yeah.
put something
Yeah,
out there that's cool?
And that was, that was the whole thing, that right from the start, when I decided that I wanted to do something, I think what you got to do is you got to kind of really go out on a limb and do something kind of almost weird, where people just think, what is that? And it kind of almost, it creates this intrigue, and they think, that's different.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's, like, I felt like when we started putting kind of hip hop tracks on our videos and applying that kind of stuff, and even just the aesthetic of our t-shirts, like this graffiti, like a graffiti drawn,
Yep.
popper or something. It's like, it's different, it's different than what everyone else is seeing.
100%, man. The first thing that actually drew my attention to you guys, other than that you were clearly topwater anglers, was the beats. The beats that you were putting down on your videos, whether on YouTube or wherever they were. It was like, okay, I get this. I get where this is coming from, and it's laid over beautifully to a point where what's inspired here, like 90s hip hop or whatever it is. But it's striking a chord with me.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. We're trying to do it different, so it does exactly that. So it strikes a chord. It's 90s hip hop. That's the era I grew up in. Like I was saying before, I was into sneakers and DJing. Like, that was a big thing. That's a big part of the kind of streetwear thing. Like, in the early days, it's probably different than what streetwear is known as today. But collecting records and sneakers, and actually, so I was DJing as well. Like, that's how, when I started Lower, I kind of needed, I needed to be able to kind of build this brand. I had no money, so I had to DJ at night to kind of actually make enough money so I could kind of work on Lower during the day.
Yeah, cool. I reckon it's really worth quickly chatting with you about land-based fishing in particular. Like, I know you love the topwater culture,
yeah,
and probably that connections with what's cool about hip hop, what's cool about sneakers is kind of what's cool about in fishing is topwater. I reckon there's an obvious connection there.
That's the hype of fishing right now. Like,
yeah,
I think,
for sure.
Like, kids around the world, or certainly around Australia and New Zealand, and it's that's the cool shit right now. So
it's growing.
So that's a great way to build a brand. Like, I totally enjoy other methods of fishing, but I have been doing a lot of topwater. I personally, I love that visual strike and all that kind of stuff. And it's like I was saying before, that throwing that expensive lure and that nice equipment and all that, I really enjoy it. I enjoy using nice equipment.
So I'm gonna flow into the next question there. Why land-based? You've got a really nice boat out there. It's actually a beast, and talk about the boat if you like.
Sure.
But why land-based, man?
Well, I think I'd started doing that a lot when I was younger, when I kind of started fishing again. And I didn't necessarily have a boat, so I kind of started doing that. And then I got a boat, and that was cool, and we did a lot of game fishing and stuff. And then I started kind of almost missing it. I get seasick.
Yep.
But probably a lot of it, to be fair, is just that challenge. Like there's such a big challenge in land base. There's so many factors that come into it. It multiplies everything. And so I think that's a huge part of it. It's that exploring. I can take my son, and I just see him, like he likes to go fishing, but he really loves land-based fishing, and a lot of it is like he can go like find a crab in a crack, and then like find an octopus, and then do some fishing, and then go.
You can't do that in the boat, can you?
You can't.
Like,
so it just changes things, and it's like you can set up camp, make a ramen. You know, the shit that we make, cook some sausages, the stuff we've done over the last few days. It's
I reckon highlight of those 2 days on the rock with you guys was seriously the chill out time.
Yeah.
The ramen. They come together. Like, you know, the bite's off. You have a bit of downtime.
Yeah.
You might even have a sleep before you get into it again. It's pretty cool.
On the hard rock, it was not
Very
not
hard
best
rock
sleep in the world, but
Got to get some noodles on the side while you're fishing. That just makes life worth living.
It's an absolute bonus,
You
right?
have to have that.
Yeah. Jake, you've got a history in Hawaii as well. Like, you're not just a Kiwi.
yeah, I'm a Yankiwi, but
A what?
Yankiwi.
Yankee.
But no, I was born in New Zealand to American folks. They kind of moved here and set up in New Zealand. My sister and I were born here, and I grew up in a place called Gisborne. And I grew up kind of moving back and forth from California to New Zealand a bit as I was growing up. But then when I was 10, we moved to Hawaii and lived on the Big Island of Hawaii where Nate lives. So that was cool.
The Big Island's Kona, yeah?
But Kona's on the Big Island, yeah. So it's a big game fishing scene there. But you know, I think all through the Hawaiian Islands there's a big emphasis on ulua. It's just like a status symbol, or like it's like a mana thing, you know.
Ulu is a way of life, the way I get it on Hawaii. Yeah, it's such an important
it is.
fish, and
Yeah.
there was one of the chats we had in the car the other day. I think it might have been Nate describing it. You know, that the angry husband, he's being at Ulua. Is that right?
More, not so much angry, but like in old times, I've read that if you had a big aggressive husband who was, you know, like maybe even warrior culture kind of thing, but like a real tough guy, the wives would call them their uluas.
Yeah.
Epic. Because that kind of describes the fish as well.
That actually describes so much, doesn't it? It really does. Probably some disturbing human behaviour, but so much about the fish.
Yeah.
So much about the fish. You know, they're bullies, they're thugs, and probably actually more than kingfish. GTs are our absolute commonality.
Absolutely.
You know, we've all caught
for sure
and pursued GTs in a lot of places around the world. You know, I met Nate, an American, in Oman. I'm now fishing with him in New Zealand, and in 2 weeks I'm fishing with him in Australia. Like 3 continents, God damn it. But GTs, you love them, right? As much as you kingfish, or maybe more, I don't know.
I think in a lot of ways that's actually, you know, what got me into lure fishing or topwater fishing was actually the GT thing. So I came, my dad moved back to Hawaii, and I started bringing my wife and kids over there, and I was into fishing, and I'd caught a few kingies on topwater. That thing was starting to kind of happen here, and I started to see the culture over in Hawaii, like seemed like it was kind of booming, this land-based GT on poppers as stick baits. And I was like, man, that's cool. And so we spent a couple of months there, and I basically caught my first GT at a place called South Point, and I just never looked back. So that I just fell in love with that fish and fell in love with that topwater hit, and it just so to be fair, GTs are kind of probably what really switched me onto the topwater thing. And then so I live in New Zealand and started to realize that, man, kingies are pretty dope too. They also hit hard, and they're gangsters too, but probably not quite as gangster, but pretty damn gangster. And you can
pretty damn gangster for sure.
you can munch on them too. So it's
which is a bonus, because the old GT has either just simply earned her respect from topwater anglers that they should all be released. Unless you're a Hawaiian, perhaps. But whether they're good to eat or not. Look, I've eaten a few GTs. I've eaten some small ones when I lived in Indonesia, and they were okay. I don't know what a big one's like, but I do love seeing the thugs go back. I really do. See, that's a really interesting thing, because we know GTs globally are in good shape. There's a lot of GTs out there, and they will travel significant distances as well in their migrations. Not that they're a migratory fish, but they will up and go for no reason. There's old stories back in Melbourne, in Victoria, where we're from, where they'll talk about the big kingfish in the rip to Port Phillip Bay and big southern bluefin tuna into the rip into Port Phillip Bay. It could quite simply be, because there are plenty of those fish in good sizes, it could quite simply be the conditions and currents have changed over time.
Well, there's a certain aspect of a land-based GT fisherman, whereas if you don't have the conditions that you can reach and can access, like, you're just not going to catch the fish. So in Kona, there's a huge amount of water that you just cannot get to where the GTs live.
From a land-based situation.
From a land-based perspective. So if the conditions aren't right, they're just not going to be there.
Yeah.
They're going to be off in 100 meters of water on the bottom, feeding on a different bait source that there's no way you can get to it.
So from a boat-based fishing perspective in Hawaii, I know it's different. There's more like chasing big black marlin, big game boats, but there are a few boats that chase GTs.
Yeah.
Probably GT Fight Club. Those boys over there are probably the...
Kaena Point is an insane fishery.
For boat-based GT
for boat-based
casting.
GT fishery, yeah. Like, I've been fortunate enough to fish kind of around the Pacific Rim where GTs live, and that particular fishery on Oahu is absolutely insane.
Yeah, you fish with the GT Fight Club boys.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're friends or what, but I've seen stuff in the past from them. They bang some good fish on the regular.
It's an incredible fishery.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's one small specific spot where it's just every element that you need in GT fishing comes together for perfection.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of a spot near Bali on the back of Nusa Penida, Batu Aba, in a really overfished place where, GTs again are on the menu, they get killed. That one spot is world class. It's just the current, the situation, the steps up from deep water are just perfect. And despite a really heavily pressured fishery, it's insane on its day. Yeah. Really interesting. You chase bonefish on Hawaii a fair bit.
I do.
Can we talk about that, or is that a no-no?
No, it's not a no-no at all. Like, that's probably our best kept fishery in Hawaii. And do you have a specific question?
No, tell us about it, man.
So bonefish in Hawaii are typically kind of a low numbers but large size class of fish. We have two different species. We have I think it's Albula vulpes and Albula glossodontes. I think it's glossodonata.
That's way more technical detail than is required.
Yeah, so that's essentially it's a sharp jaw and a round jaw bonefish. The sharp jaw bonefish is typically like off the beaches, kind of deeper water, schools of 10,000 fish at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, it can be really productive. Whereas your fish on the flats are typically the round jaws. Sharp jaws will go up as well, but typically in Hawaii you're fishing for a round jaw bonefish on the flats, and a 6 kilo fish is not out of the question.
That's a tank, man.
That's a massive bonefish. When you see them on the flats, a really shallow water situation, they look massive.
So you've described it to me before. It's not a clear water fishery. A little bit deeper.
You're on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So without the risk of the local boys on different islands,
please don't.
Absolutely, just strangling me. Oahu, which is a very well-known and established fishery, is typically a clear water fishery, and I think they have a larger overall size than the other island or islands, but they're heavily pressured.
Yeah, okay.
They've seen every fly, they've seen every soft bait, they've seen everything, but they're huge.
Big fish.
Big fish.
Now you've opened a little segue there around you're not just a topwater guy, you're not just a plugger. You love fly.
Any kind of fishing.
Yeah, I've seen you with a fly rod though, man. It's worth quickly discussing fly because you achieved something here that I think's worth understanding and acknowledging. Like I've seen you cast fly in Oman on a number of occasions. The first was we were fishing the Wadi on a bit of a blowout wind day, and I think it might have been Hank's 6-weight or something. It was a fairly light outfit.
I don't really remember.
Yeah, you're casting for mangrove jacks in the Wadi, and I was like, the thing I remember is you were so smooth. You made fly fishing look easy, which is a sure sign that you're good at it. fasting forward then to last year on the Reef Raiders trip. It was a tricky trip. Water temps were 4 degrees hotter than normal, and GTs were off. They were so off. Like even the Shari were off over there.
Everything was off.
And it lit up when the water dropped a week or so later. But you and Flynn in particular, Flynn Cypher, Saltwater Prodigy.
We had a good time, man.
Yeah, you achieved some cool stuff.
Had a great time fishing. Yeah.
So tell us, you're over there walking the islands. Like, what did you pull?
So fishing with Flynn, the guys on the boat, Ed and I forget, were you on that boat the same day? I kind of forget, but we got dropped off on an island and went to hunt parrotfish.
Yeah, I did one day with you, and you did other days without me. Like, you did way more fly than me, because me and a fly rod aren't friends. I like the concept.
You were also set up really bad too.
Oh yeah, be kind to me. You know, I'm bad. I'm not a fly fisherman's butthole.
Full sinking line is not the way you want to jump into it. But so in regards to fishing with Flynn and Ed at No Boundaries, since the GTs were off, we all happened to bring fly rods as a backup plan, and we got dropped off one day chasing parrotfish, which also, to be fair, were pretty off by all measures. But we were able to find one fish tailing in the shallows that I kind of flicked the fly to, and he just miraculously ate the fly and hooked up proper. I'd always heard that everybody who goes and fishes fly for these parrotfish in Oman just gets reefed and busted off, and like you hook 15 and land one.
Brutal fighters, but instantly I recognized on the first fish that if you don't go for a swim, you're not getting that fish. So it was full on cowboy fishing. Like, you hook up and it's like, okay, if you're not in the water, this fish is gone. Yeah, okay.
So it was diving under reef and under ledges and unhooking your fly line and just free spooling it for a long, long, long time.
So it's lucky the water's 30 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, it was not uncomfortable at all.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of a mess. You've got waves crashing, and the fish has gone under 18 different reefs, and you're swimming after the fly line and just unhooking it under everything.
Winding a bit in,
and like, is the fish still there? I have no idea.
This isn't really normal fishing.
No,
it's not normal fishing, and like, I think that if you went in with that kind of mentality, like, you just cowboy fish it. And you'll probably land most of them if you're willing to just dive through the waves.
That was a dhofar parrotfish?
Dhofar
Parrotfish. And they're pretty cool looking critters, aren't they?
They're the most beautiful.
Real pastel-y colours. Yeah.
It's like a peach pink and like lined with blue and just amazing.
Pretty amazing fish.
And if you can't see that on the flat, you can't see anything.
You're blind.
You're blind. Exactly.
Then you became known a couple of days later as the permit guy. You went on a mission with Ed. And, everyone, in fly fishing circles, permit are the target, right? They're a holy grail type species.
It's because they're so frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the beach that Ed took me, I think for 2 days we went there.
You did 2 days, absolutely.
The first day we all got shut down but saw a ton of fish. And then I think the night before I ended up getting my fish, we made the call, like, these GTs are just so off that, like, we might as well just go chase permit for the day. And still, we got to the permit beach and there was heaps of fish. There was fish everywhere.
Tailing everywhere
in the surf, which in permit fishing is not normal. Like, most guys go on a permit trip and they see a few and maybe get one shot. But this was fish everywhere.
Lots of shots at them?
There was hundreds of permit.
Wow.
Hundreds of permit. Wow. It was insane. Like, and to be thrown into that situation and have so many shots and they still don't eat the damn fly. Is frustrating, but
them not eating is a typical thing, though, isn't
it? It's almost like they have this massive eye on the side of their head that you can see through the waves, but they're blind. You can land the fly on their head 100 times. It's like they don't see it.
Wow. Or is it they see it that good and go, I'm not eating that. That's not a crab.
I don't know. Like, a more experienced permit fisherman would probably be able to tell you that, but that's not me. I've only done it those 2 days in Oman.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, eventually I switched to a neon orange fly and got one to finally see the damn thing.
Well, maybe they can't see it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It seemed to me like they were just a blind fish, which is weird because the eye is like the size of a drink glass.
We're kind of getting off track here a little bit, but I don't know a lot about permit. Do they kind of like burrow through the sand? Looking for their crabs?
It's not really my area. I'm not an experienced.
You just catch them.
I caught one, not them. Them implies plural, like singular.
Maybe it was a blind one. It just didn't-
Yeah.
Maybe it stumbled on it and you foul hooked it. I don't know.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
Trash talking now. Was that the first perm caught over there?
No, they've got a bunch.
They've got. I know they've got some since, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if they had.
I think they've
any...
got a lot less parrots than permits.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They're dofars.
But that, like, for that particular situation, like, you travel so far and your target fish is off, to have a permit and a parrot as a backup plan is...
Right.
I mean, I've never heard of a backup plan as permit fishing.
And yeah, true.
It's
true. And that's
next
a bit
level.
indicative of the quality and variety that you get at No Boundaries is if you're not single species orientated, like totally committed, you can absolutely make a great trip out of maybe a poor situation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fully.
On the same trip.
Packing a fly, I think, is always a good idea. Like, bringing it back to our New Zealand trip that we're all on together here, like, you know, we threw mostly stick baits, you know, out on the rocks, but, like, having a fly to just do something a little bit different adds an element of, like, okay, this could be cool.
Well,
And then if you pull it off, it's like, that's mad.
well, let's go there, man. Let's go there because that was mad. You did it.
Well, I poached your fish.
But it wasn't just one, but yeah, you did.
So I did, let's be honest.
Early on day one, we're on the rock, and I don't know if Slice or Brendan had caught a fish yet. I'm not sure. Maybe they had because they got one real early.
Yeah. I think Tim had got one.
I think we were hooked up at the
Super early.
same time, actually.
Yeah, so I raised a couple of fish that followed me twice, and there was a classic switch from my stick bait over to your fly that landed just, you know, skillfully right in the right spot, and bang, man, you were connected and got towed around fiercely. Like
Yeah, it was wild.
You had a under feet cave to contend with.
Yeah, with a fly rod, which was tough. But like, I think the whole key to that was you did all the work, and
Yeah, come on, man.
I just put the food in front of his face. It was easier to catch, and he caught it.
Yeah, maybe,
That's
but
the situation.
maybe,
Yeah.
but you know, you've ticked off a massive thing there. I think meter 2 or meter 3 or something. What was it?
I think
Meter 4?
I think it was almost dead on a meter.
Dead on a meter.
Dead
Okay,
on a meter
okay.
fish. Which is bigger.
It went over a meter. I mean, that's the little I know about fly fishing in New Zealand for kingfish. That's a great fish. And to be off the rocks.
Yeah, right.
Like that's amazing.
In Australia, a meter fish on fly. I'm not even going to draw a distinction between land-based and boat. Is major.
Yeah.
In terms of fly fishing,
That's a tough
achievement, so.
fly fishing situation because you know you're high up on the rocks. There's a ton of surf. Like controlling the fly is almost impossible. And then once you hooked the damn things, they're buried under the kelp and under the ledges. And if you're not, you know, kind of a billy goat to get, you know, your rod around all the obstacles, you're done. You're sunk. There's a little bit of again like that kind of cowboy billy goat. You know, you have to be on the move.
I was watching you all through that fight. Firstly, like, I can't believe he poached my fish, and then secondly, watching you in so much trouble, man.
It was bad.
And I honestly gave you very slim margins of landing that fish, and it's tiger country where you hook that thing, and God damn it, you pulled it off. That was a cool moment.
At one point during the fight, I think I was rewatching the video the other night, and I was like, "Oh, it's got you, man. Oh, you're done. You're done." And like,
You're done.
But he wasn't. He somehow pulled it off. Like, he should have been done, but somehow he just pulled it off.
That was such a cool
These
moment,
guys got
man.
no faith, man.
Yeah, no faith.
All right, boys. Before I switch over to a bit of a chat with Kish, there's a lot of GT experience here, and there's maybe some relatively new kingfish experience. What fights harder?
Different. I would say that big kingy I got in a stick bait fishing SCU, JC, like was absolutely hectic and wild and strong, and like ripping full GT drag. Once the GT kind of like turns its side in the current, it's really hard to move. I think the kingfish are a little bit easier to control on that aspect because of the shape of them.
Yeah.
But like they're strong, man. Jake told me years ago that kingfish were just as strong as GTs. I didn't believe him until I hooked a few big ones. It's like, oh yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah.
It's a nasty fish.
They've got some similar attributes for my money in terms of their desire to find something deep to go to. Like, is
Very
it
similar in that sense. Yeah.
Is it to bury you? Who knows? But their instinct is to do that, to go to structure.
Yep.
Like, I don't think they know they're attached to a fishing line and I need to tangle it. I don't think that's it. But their instinct is to go to those places. For my money, the initial mayhem of a GT is really actually hard to beat.
I would agree.
And,
yeah.
but the kingy, this is my first land-based kingfish trip. I've never done land-based before. Caught a stack of kingies before from the boat, and my experience from the boat has always been they don't give up.
Yeah, they I think they got more go, and maybe that's the colder water or something, and they kind of more oxygen in the water.
Yeah, they're coming from different temperate,
Yeah.
Regions of the ocean.
And it's like, little things like a GT comes up and it kind of tends to sit still, and until you release it. But kingies kind of go a bit mad.
Yeah, they're nuts.
And
nuts. I think they're a bloody mahi.
But they tend to kind of keep flipping and flopping and keep going. But I think definitely I'd have to say that GT's that initial hit is probably harder, more violent, but kingies can also be pretty damn. I think to me it's the next best thing.
There'll be individual fish that'll really stack on a turn, of course. Like remember your fish, Nate, that this hit is burnt into my mind. A full sideways surface strike. It hit your lure running. It came in with purpose. It wasn't a pluck. It was I'm eating you from 5 meters away and coming in with power. Remember that? And you went close to maybe losing your footing.
Yeah, I thought I was going to go in. That particular fish, the angle that it hit the lure was every bit as savage as a really nasty GT off the bricks in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Every inch of that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That, initial, 10, 20 seconds was mayhem.
So they've got a lot in common,
strong.
but there's some different attributes there, for sure.
Yeah, they're both strong fish, no doubt about it. They both kind of play dirty. Different. I think probably one of the big things for me is that you lose a lot of GTs to the sharpness of the the environment, the coral or whatever, the rocks. Kingies, you definitely get like busted off from the sharp as well, but it's probably I think I get weeded more than I get broken off, and so like you can still get broken off in that sense because they bury the trebles or the lure into the weeds, and then you can't get the lure back. So it's just as bad. But
that cool water environment where you've got kelp, and they're using it, aren't they?
They are.
Whether they're intending to or not, they're going for it, and it's a massive hazard to landing that fish for sure.
Yeah, I mean I've seen some underwater footage a few years ago of like a guy Matt Watson who was like a TV guy here.
What was his show? The ITM show.
ITM fishing show. Yeah. And so there's some great footage of like he had full underwater cameraman, and there were land-based fishing actually, and the kingies were going into the kelp and like thrashing around, rubbing in against it, and it was really cool to kind of see just how gnarly they go. And that it's like this kind of crazy try and shake off show, but they're using the kelp to kind of try and rub off.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So they really help to kind of understand what they're doing.
He's captured some amazing footage over the years. And that show still exists, doesn't it?
I think it's changed slightly now. I'm not sure, but I think he's still in the game somehow.
Somewhere. Yeah, he's one guy stuff. That's really made an enduring career out of
he really has.
fishing TV, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And
really good angler.
Clearly a good angler.
Very much so.
He's caught New Zealand's fish 20 times over, the best of them.
Yeah.
I remember an old episode of his that I think maybe they were legal back then, of catching a great white.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah. No, he definitely he's a cool guy. Like it seems to be like does some cool stuff. He's done some big. I think wasn't he on the Letterman show or something?
Oh, really?
Like he did. I think when he was jumping out of helicopters onto Marlin.
Oh, Gannet Man.
Yeah, Gannet Man, something like that.
Surely no one bought that.
Yeah, some bullshit, but it was cool.
Jumped onto a rubber marlin.
Yeah.
Kish, how are you, brother?
I'm good.
I'm back with my ship bro.
Yeah, partner in crime.
Partner in crime. We do a lot of fishing together, as probably most people know.
Spooning later tonight.
Yeah, I lost the
doing
bet.
some spooning.
We got a double bed. We have to sleep in it together.
Yeah, we've got a very dodgy room, as I said at the start, and there was a bit of rock paper scissors, and I'll be facing the wall. Is all I'm saying.
So will I be.
So Kish, you've never caught kingfish before?
No, this is a first for me. No, opposite wall.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a first. It's a first for me. I've never caught a kingfish, so it's always been on my bucket list. Typically, most guys would probably tick it off in a boat first.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, most. All.
Yeah, or all of them.
And it would be on a jig or a live bait. You've gone straight to the top of the class, man.
Yeah, and I think reflecting on that, like we were talking about it before, in a boat, how do you compare a boat angler to a shore angler? Is the boat can chase the fish. The shore angler can't. You're left with what you've got, and you got to deal with it and try and make it happen. So you can't, chase the fish by going from location to location and chasing the bait. If you set up somewhere and you're going to fish there, that's what you're going to do.
You're there for the day, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to an island, you go to a point, you go to a ledge. This is our spot today.
So if you let that sink in, it's actually quite, I'd say very hard to land kingfish off the rocks to an extent.
Even more than land them, to get them, to find them and get a lure in their mouth.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big achievement.
And I think the fishing that we came across the last 2-3 days has been incredible. So
I'd say world class.
Yeah, world class.
Right there.
Yeah.
Kingfish to those numbers and
sizes
weight on Topwater. Wow, man, that's cool.
Yeah. To whose credit is that? I mean,
Jake.
Yeah, it's Jake.
The work that he's
Jake.
put in.
Yeah.
This guy's
100%, man.
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have ticked off a massive achievement.
And I know straight up, man.
Shout out. I need to say, like, it's certainly not all me. I've learned from my friends. Like these guys have taught me a lot. Brendan Tallboy, he's taught me so much, and even Slice. He grew up fishing. His father was a commercial fisherman, and that was his life growing up on the wharf down in Whakatane. Like he was doing tuna poling as a kid. So like these guys have taught me a lot of stuff, and together we've figured it out together.
And you know what? That's you both, Nate, and you have done that beautifully. That honest, humble acknowledgement of the people that you respect or help you or are part of your crew and your commitment to fishing, because so many anglers have so much ego attached to their fishing. It's all about me.
That's out there.
It's about me.
Well, I think when it comes to our past couple months, that the three of us, myself, you, JC, and Christian, like we didn't rock up to 20-kilo kingfish because we're good. We rocked up to 20-kilo kingfish because these guys were so on their game and had the water temperature dialed and made a call based on what they saw on graphs, and they were so dialed into their program. We were just dumb enough and lucky enough to be like, okay, let's go catch trophy kingfish on their call. It happened.
We're at the other end of an internet chat group where Jake's talking north, south, east, west, currents, left, right. This is where the pattern's happening. And, your network is feeding you, making a call, and it's the right one. Let's be straight up. There's a lot of pressure on that. There's so much pressure on that. And I know you would have put pressure on yourself, Jake.
Absolutely. I feel, well, certainly with Nate, I've come to Hawaii a few times, and he's kind of taken me fishing, a number of times, and it's a big effort. There's a lot that goes into it, and he imparts so much knowledge on me. He's just shared so much. I feel like I've learned so much just about fishing in general, but topwater fishing in particular. And so I there was pressure. I was like, damn, we got to perform. I was putting it on my buddies too. Come on, boys, we got to show these guys what's up.
We got to be on our A game.
And you boys from Ebb Tide, damn, JC, this GT that the land-based GT that you got in Oman, it's just legendary. The whole world knows about that shit.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? First GT ever caught off the bricks.
And then I started to didn't really know, I hadn't really met Christian, but I started looking in the Murray cod and realizing how amazing those captures are. I was like, damn, these guys are good fishermen.
You look back, a few years with Christian. There he is fishing New Caledonia with Sammy Gandor.
I learned all this as through the trip, and it was you only kind of just told me yesterday. But I was like, damn, we went on this trip for 4 days. How can you never mention this shit?
I tell you, when I first kind of Kish come into my world, into my scene, and I looked back and saw this young punk fishing with Sammy Gandor, I thought, who the hell is this? He's from Shepparton. I grew up in Shepparton. No, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, it's that. I've had some epic memories. I can't, you know, I'm very lucky to have fished with people like Sam, but even, you know, Nate and Jake, like Nate mentioned before, like
He's a legend.
Nate's a god. Jake's a legend. You know, like exactly what Nate said before. Myself, John, and Nate are very lucky to bump into fish of that caliber, because looking at myself, someone that's never caught a kingfish and then bumped that 20 kilo mark.
Yeah, man, you banged the 20.
Due to LoCAB boys putting us in exactly right spot on.
Yeah, in boat parlance, for the most part, it's the skipper.
110%.
Good anglers acknowledge that.
Yep.
There's an angling skill associated with the actual execution.
I think
credit the skipper. In these circumstances, the skipper's LoCAB, man.
Yeah, man. And
on this shore-based adventure.
I totally agree with that.
You know, not any, like, some people can't just rock up to the rocks and just catch a big fish like that. Like, you got to know how to angle to kind of to you know, make sure your lure swimming right, to keep casting, to just know how to deal. So, like, you can't just be any fool that can just rock up and do that. So you guys, you know,
not any fool. You still got to get the bite.
It's far more, I think, land based. It's far more about, you know, like the angler, which is kind of cool because it levels the playing field on a boat. You know, often it is kind of. The skipper, there's a lot more pressure on the skipper. So, like, I think land-based far less, and it was cool because we were all just fishing, we're all doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just you're relying on your buddies, because, like, landing the fish is just. I mean, how many fish did we lose just because couldn't get it up the weed or whatever? You know, like the waves and the swell. And
yeah, it was pretty sketchy, man. Like, we had
sketchy.
Did you feel it was like about a 3-meter surge?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the surge was significant. I mean, the swell, I think it was a 1.6 meter swell.
Yeah, and that equates to quite a bigger surge
Quite a bit
up
on
a rock.
a surge on a rock.
Yeah. So, yeah, we probably
Pushed
should be, as land-based anglers, quite happy and acknowledge no one got hurt. Because
right.
you can get hurt doing this
And we
stuff.
took our time,
Don't
and
forget
we
that.
you know, we in the end we started jumping in the water and swimming, because it was like,
Yeah.
you know, trying to do shit onto the rocks was getting a little bit dangerous. So,
Yeah, and-
you know, you just got to continue to. There's a lot of thinking and a lot of you know, we were all thinking about it, and you know, applying, I guess, a lot of previous experience, just really making sure that nothing bad went wrong. But
And credit to you as like a skipper's call. We had 2 days of fantastic fishing and couldn't wait for the third day. Like, we were sore. We were really sore, but couldn't wait to get out there, and, you know, you got your own little goals that you want to meet. But the weather wasn't good. The weather was turning
Yep.
on day 3, and you went, boys, I think we're done. And everyone respects that, acknowledges that, and it was the right call,
110%.
because the weather really turned.
Yep.
It
and
really
that's
did.
New Zealand weather. You know, it can just turn so quickly. And I mean, we had a great time. We went somewhere else, and we you know, took a few snapper off the list.
Well,
and
Nate did.
Nate did, yeah. A few, like 4 in about 4 minutes. But anyway.
I like to think I'm a reasonable soft bait fisherman for snapper, and I now don't think I am. Oh, Nate's
That was
amazing.
Nate
I'm
in
not
the
sure.
room.
After Nate's contribution.
Yeah. So, boys, this trip's winding up. We're about to probably head into Auckland to a restaurant and have a nice feed and wind this up and, you know, make plans for next time. But I think a good way to end this is, like, what's your next little thing? What's, like, you know, not so much in perhaps like business or passions or life, but what's your next little fishing thing that you've got your eye on, and it might be a PB or a trip or a target. What is it for you next?
Well, since I got the mic, I'll go first. For me, it's I got to get this 30 from the bricks.
Yep.
You know, off my back on a kingfish.
How close have you gotten?
I've had a few fish in the kind of early 20s to maybe mid 20s. You know, like if I know it's not 30, I have got about a 32 kilo fish on Topwater from my boat.
Yep. Nice
and
fish,
that was great. It was a huge achievement. I got that off my back, but now it's about off the bricks. And so if I know it's not 30, I'm not really kind of like that's the line for me. So I've had a few in that mid early 20 length or weight. And so that's probably the biggest one for me. That's one that's really kind of got me like, I feel like I got to do this.
And the other day when we had that, that pack attack, that manic multiple hookup, you were screaming.
I saw
to
them.
your boys. You said, "There's 30s
They
down
were
there.
there.
There's 30s."
They were there.
You know.
I mean, Tolly's fish kind of, you know, it was shit. That was a big one. But I could see he was hooked up, and I saw bigger ones underneath, and his fish weighed 24 point something.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Just
you know,
to give you perspective.
Yeah,
So-
so they were there.
You're gonna get it, man.
It'll happen.
You've got the passion, you got the drive, and it will happen. And I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to.
Nate Dog.
Me. What's next?
Yeah,
what you're asking?
Well, you got a bit on, haven't you?
I really want to do some Arctic char fishing, like up in the northern territories of Canada,
Wow.
Greenland, that kind of thing, because I really love my salmonids.
Yeah, you do.
That's, as far as species goes, like I'd really love to get into some Arctic char. But as far as fishing at home, I love one aspect of fishing that I call cross training. When you learn one discipline, you get better at another. So one of the things I'd really like to do at home is actually get into throwing net. When you guys,
Yeah, really?
you're gonna laugh at me about that.
But it's a skill.
It's a skill that I don't have, that guys who are really into throwing net in Hawaii know a ton more about the fishery than I do as a topwater fisherman or like a spin bait fisherman. And I really want to get into that so I can cross train and learn more about the ecosystem from a different perspective.
Yeah, wow.
To make you better at something else.
That's kind of not what I expected, but I totally get it.
Yeah,
I know
and,
they're
and
tricky.
I like to eat fish, so
Yeah, unashamedly.
yeah, no,
I
I kill fish.
The one kingfish that met its maker on our trip was called by you. Like you had like a 90 in hand,
On
and
the
you
fly,
said,
on the
and you
fly.
said, this one's poke, right?
Yeah, this one's dead. Yeah.
So hang on, before you give that back over to Kish,
Oh man.
you're in Australia for another 2 weeks. Like
Yeah.
you're in New Zealand right now, of course, but
Yeah.
you're going to Australia, and you're hooking up with Brooksy, Johnny Brooks Fishing. What
Yeah.
are you guys doing?
We have no idea what we're doing. We're
I hope he does by now.
probably not, but I think we're kind of gonna go for pack for Barra, pack for some GTs, probably whatever the weather dictates. Really, ideally, I think what we've been talking about is if the baby black marlin on the flats, whether it's on stick baits,
Up at
trolls,
Fraser
on the
Island.
fly, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
If that happens, I think that's our ultimate goal. But really, I don't really care. You know, it's just the time traveling and the time like having a great time with different people, and probably going to be a lot of beers with Brooksy.
Yeah, I think so.
Like unabashedly.
Yeah, there'll be a bit of YouTube filming.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm sure.
predicting.
But if we can get it to some barramundi,
lot.
like I've never seen a barramundi before.
Yeah, man.
I would love to do that.
That's cool, man.
So what I know about you is epic things are about to happen, because what I've seen about you and fishing is
I don't know about that.
it's either you're really, really good or you just attract good vibes and fish come your way. So, and on the back of Brooksy, you're coming
That's
down
with,
to hook
with
up.
captains and guides and stuff.
Yeah, you choose well who you fish with, perhaps. I know. But on the back of Brooksy, you're coming down to Victoria for Murray cod.
Yep.
So we're
I'm
looking forward to that.
Really excited about that.
Well, just don't get too amped up about the fight, because you just might be let down. But they're a damn cool species. They hit hard. They're fun, and hopefully we can put you tight to one.
You know, honestly, the fight of a fish, even from when I was like 5 years old, has never mattered to me. The fighting the fish has been the last thing on the list of what's cool about fishing. I don't care about the fight. What I like is just getting the eat, and it's that instant connection with the fish at that moment. That's everything.
You're gonna love Murray cod, then.
Do not care about the fight.
You're gonna love cod. You are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the eat.
So we'll talk more about that in Australia. We'll get the mic back on you over there for a chat at the end of that trip, and talk about your experiences there when we get to it. Kish, what's next?
For me, we've obviously got Oman in next year.
Yeah, October.
So to me, that's PB GT at the moment it's 40. So to beat anything above 40 would be.
That's your game.
I'd be grateful and humble. But in saying that, anything under 40, I'd still be happy. And freshwater wise would be just to tick that meter 30 plus Murray cod.
Yeah, you've banged some big fish like meter 22 river fish. They're big fish. So you've got me covered, man. You've got me well covered. You'll do it. I know you'll do it.
Yeah. Last season the river was a bit quiet. And
but you spent a lot of time lake fishing.
Lake
too.
fishing, yeah, which is something I wanted to tick off. I wanted to tick off that big swim bait fish, which we did very well. We ticked off a lot of big models in that area. So, and we cracked the code on an impoundment that we thought we could never crack. and we
Yeah, we
obviously
were getting
did.
frustrated with that lake, weren't we?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about Eildon, it was like starting to do our head in and mess
Yep.
with our confidence. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, for getting back to the river, I'm excited to get back home and see what the river's doing.
Sweet.
Color wise.
Well, yeah, season's open.
Yeah.
So we know where we'll find
Yeah.
you, right?
Definitely. And just to finish off, man, just so everyone knows when they watch the clip, when we release it, just to give you an idea of what type of guy Jake is. So at the point on the first day, I haven't even, like, we all had this major hookup, and I was redoing my FG knot, and he shouted, "Get Kish, get Kish, get Kish." And I've ran over the rock ledge with this half-done FG knot, thinking, there's all these kingies, we just got to make the most of it, like any angler would. So I've cast it out, hooked up to this kingy, and I've popped it because the FG knot's obviously half done.
You were half time.
Yeah, and Jake's just gone, "Man, grab my rod. It's a left-hand wide." He goes, "Change it to a right-hand wide and just get the lure in there." So I've done that. The time I've come back over the rocks, cast it out, hooked up, bang, 18-kilo fish on a CB1 Zorro. And we just told me before it's some anniversary model, so it's not a cheap lure. And he's let me keep the lure because it was my first kingfish.
Legend.
So just to let anyone know that's listening to this podcast, so you understand what this type of guy is.
He's a good dude, man.
He's a legend, man.
And let it be said, whilst he was yelling for you, Kish,
Yeah,
I wasn't.
He was thinking. He was thinking. He was thinking of me, man, and I'm grateful for that. He's an awesome dude. He's even a better father from what we've understood over the last 3 days.
Damn cool
4
dude.
days, yeah. And yeah, man, I can't wait to put that lure up on my wall.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I love that.
So thank you.
So the final thing for me, what's kind of my future? I've
for you.
really got a hankering. I've got to get a topwater dog.
That's the other thing I was going to mention.
Yeah, it's on so many people's list, and I reckon it's come to the top of mine now.
You need a bonefish, man.
Yeah. I need a bonefish.
all need a bonefish.
You need a Hawaiian bonefish because there's nothing like
Can you
it.
hook us all up with a bonefish?
I'm there's a lot of things you're keen on, right? Like I want a peacock bass, I want a largemouth bass, I want all these different things. Want.
Dog is
want.
your thing, though, right?
Right now, in terms of like tropical topwater casting, I need to experience a representative like 30 kilo or better kind of doggy. Like hey, would I be happy with a 25? Yeah, of course I would, man. Would I be? I just want to do it. I want to do
with
it.
you on that.
So
I can see a 4-way trip happening.
there could be another trip happening. Who knows? Let's wind it up. The outflow is just about to finish, and we're about to go into Auckland and have a feed. Jake, thank you, man. We've had an awesome time.
And
Thanks for taking care of us.
Yeah, like it's right back at you guys. It's great to fish with guys that are just inspiring. Like I feel like I've learned a lot on this trip. Like it's just so cool to actually see all the different equipment and gear, and you learn a lot when coming together like this from different places, and just all of the yarns. We literally just talked fishing the whole time. Like we didn't talk. We talked a little bit about some deep and meaningful stuff, but it was a lot about fishing. And so we all probably learn, and that was great fun. So
all right, guys, LoCAB on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Check them out. Check them out online. Check out the cool gear and buy some.
Yeah,
Righto. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Outflow by Ebb Tide Tackle. Subscribe to the podcast to listen to other episodes and stay up to date with new releases. And don't forget to rate and review.